Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics is one of the most important works ever written on how to live a good human life. Unlike many modern ideas of happiness, Aristotle is not mainly interested in pleasure, comfort, self-expression, or positive emotions. He is asking a deeper question: what kind of life allows a human being to truly flourish? For Aristotle, happiness, or eudaimonia, is not a passing mood. It is not simply feeling good or getting what we want. It is the fulfillment of our nature through reason, virtue, friendship, and meaningful activity over the course of a whole life. In other words, happiness is not something we chase directly. It is something that emerges when we become the kind of person capable of living well. Here are 5 lessons from Nicomachean Ethics. Lesson 1: Happiness is not a feeling, it is a way of living. Aristotle begins with the idea that every action aims at some good. We study, work, build relationships, make choices, and pursue goals because we believe they will lead to something valuable. But he argues that there must be some highest good, something we seek not merely as a tool for something else, but because it is worthwhile in itself. He calls this highest good eudaimonia, often translated as happiness, but it means something closer to flourishing or living well. This matters because Aristotle is not describing happiness as a temporary emotional state. A person can feel pleasure and still live poorly, just as a person can face hardship and still live with dignity, purpose, and excellence. For Aristotle, happiness has to be judged across a life, not just in isolated moments. It is the shape of a life guided by what is truly worth choosing. This challenges a very modern mistake, treating happiness as something we should feel all the time. Aristotle would say the better question is not, am I happy right now? But, am I becoming the kind of person whose life can genuinely flourish? Lesson 2: Virtue is built through habit, not good intentions. One of Aristotle's most practical insights is that virtue is not something we possess simply because we admire it. We become just by doing just actions, courageous by doing courageous actions, generous by practicing generosity, and disciplined by acting with discipline. Character is formed through repetition. This means that who we become is deeply shaped by what we repeatedly do, especially when no one is watching. Aristotle does not think moral excellence appears automatically because we know the right answer. Knowledge matters, but it is not enough. A person can understand courage and still act cowardly, or admire moderation and still live without self-control. Virtue becomes real only when it becomes part of our habits, instincts, and way of meeting the world. Choose one virtue you want to strengthen: patience, courage, honesty, generosity, discipline, or moderation. Then choose one small repeated action that gives that virtue a chance to become real. Do not only ask what you believe, ask what your habits are training you to become. Lesson 3: The good life requires balance, not extremes. Aristotle's doctrine of the mean is one of the central ideas in Nicomachean Ethics. He argues that virtue often lies between two extremes, one of excess and one of deficiency. Courage, for example, lies between recklessness and cowardice. Generosity lies between wastefulness and stinginess. Confidence lies between arrogance and insecurity. This does not mean that virtue is always a bland compromise or the safest middle option. The mean depends on the situation, the person, the timing, and the purpose of the action. True virtue requires judgment. You have to know when to speak, how much to give, when to endure, when to act, and when to hold back. Aristotle's deeper point is that living well is not about following rigid formulas, it is about developing the wisdom to respond rightly to reality. Balance is not passivity. It is not avoiding intensity or staying neutral. In Aristotle's sense, balance means giving the right response, in the right way, for the right reason, at the right time. That kind of balance takes maturity. Lesson 4: Pleasure is not the goal, but it reveals what we love. Aristotle does not reject pleasure. He understands that pleasure is part of a good life. But he warns that pleasure becomes dangerous when we treat it as the highest good. If pleasure becomes the main goal, then we may organize our lives around comfort, appetite, praise, distraction, or immediate satisfaction. Aristotle's view is more subtle. Pleasure follows naturally from the activities we love and practice well. A musician finds pleasure in music, a thoughtful friend finds pleasure in friendship, and a person of virtue finds pleasure in noble action. This means our pleasures reveal something about our character. What we enjoy is not morally neutral, because repeated enjoyment shapes our desires. The question is not simply whether something feels good, but whether our pleasures are connected to activities that make us more fully human. Look honestly at what you most often take pleasure in. Do those pleasures leave you more awake, capable, generous, and grounded? Or do they leave you more restless, dependent, distracted, or diminished? Aristotle would not ask you to reject pleasure, but to educate desire. Lesson 5. Friendship is essential to a flourishing life. For Aristotle, friendship is not a side topic or an emotional luxury. It is central to the good life. He describes different kinds of friendship: friendships of usefulness, friendships of pleasure, and friendships of virtue. Friendships of usefulness are based on mutual benefit. Friendships of pleasure are based on enjoyment, shared interests, or good company. These can be real, but they are often unstable because they depend on circumstances. The highest form of friendship is friendship of virtue, where two people genuinely wish the good for each other and help each other become better. Aristotle believes that we need such friendships because human beings do not flourish alone. A good friend becomes a mirror, a companion, and a partner in the pursuit of a life worth living. This lesson is especially powerful because it challenges both selfishness and isolation. Aristotle would say that becoming yourself is not something you do entirely by yourself. The people closest to you shape your character, your choices, and your vision of what life is for. Nicomachean Ethics teaches that happiness is much deeper than comfort, pleasure, or getting what we want. Aristotle asks us to think about the whole shape of a human life. Are we forming good habits? Are we learning balance and judgment? Are our pleasures connected to what is worthy? Are our friendships helping us become better? Are we using reason not just to succeed, but to live well? The central message is demanding but hopeful: happiness is not something that simply happens to us. It is cultivated. It grows through practice, character, wisdom, and relationships that call us toward our better selves. Aristotle's vision of happiness is not about escaping difficulty or maximizing pleasure. It is about becoming excellent at being human. The final lesson is simple: happiness is not found by chasing every desire, it is built by becoming the kind of person whose life can truly flourish.
Hello. I am known as the narrator. Thank you for being here. I hope you take these lessons to heart and that you find them useful. Please join us for more wisdom from classic books and other interesting lessons.